Today is May the 30th, 2018. I am here with Joe Imbriano, the Fullerton Informer. We are outside the Orange Unified School District. What are we doing here today, Joe?
Well, we're hoping to influence the Board of Trustees to, after having called an emergency meeting to address parental concerns over curriculum, we're hoping to get this Board of Trustees to vote to block the implementation of some of the very controversial sex ed curriculum. And there were quite a parade of speakers at the last meeting, and there was an overwhelming consensus in the room that a lot of this curriculum is inappropriate and even medically and factually inaccurate. So what they did is they agreed to call an emergency meeting to halt the implementation of this curriculum, and tonight they're going to take a vote on whether to delay this implementation until further notice or to roll it out in a couple of days here for some of the students in the Orange Unified School District. We hope to influence them to do the right thing, and hopefully there'll be some people here tonight that will bring more factual evidence and information to the platform that will be discussed here, and they can make an educated choice on the right thing for these children.
So if you peel it back, what's it really about? OUSD board, let me ask you this question. Do you know what a sex scam is? Until I started this journey, I had no idea. So let me tell you what it stated on the very program OUSD is using to educate our children. Sex scams can be used for oral sex, mouth, on your vagina, anus, or testicles. Oh, and if you don't know where to buy one, Teen Talk will tell you how to make one. Additionally, Teen Talk will also let them know where they can get a free penis and sex toy. I've actually printed that information out for you guys. So I'm asking you, board members, this sexual lesson will also be taught to your kids, grandkids, nieces, nephews. So ask yourself this, can you look at them and say, yes, I support this program? This fact is absolutely the parents' right to talk about these type of activities and their moral values. Why am I made to be okay with these type of lessons? Because society is changing, so I must sacrifice my core values. We need to stop this now, or our next fight is going to be against a person who identifies best not wearing clothes because it causes them anxiety, so they need to bring their therapy monkey with them wherever they go. Well, you think I might be exaggerating. In 1940, if you told my grandmother one day our schools would teach her great-grandson about sex scams for anal use, she probably would have thought we were exaggerating, but we're not. Our rights as parents are being taken away, and our children's innocence is being violated just like mine was. And just as my mom did, I'm not going to step aside and pretend it's okay. Thank you.
I'd like to share an experience, and I want to thank the community for coming out and sharing your views. That's what we want. We represent you, so we want to hear your thoughts. Whether we may agree with them or not, that doesn't matter. We want to represent you. And so this is not a typical curriculum such as geometry or math. This is something that hits very close to home with fundamental core values. And I just want to share with you, because I have done extensive research in this, and I have read through the curriculum probably tens of times, both the APEX and also the Teen Talk. And as I read through it, I noticed that, wow, this is definitely some different information than we've ever had before in the past due to the 8329 law. And so I could understand why this would be controversial, and as it was demonstrated tonight, such as, now I do believe that I did read the revisions that Orange Unified did do, and the sexual orientation and gender identity, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe I'm correct on this, that every page that was in that section has remained the same. No page has been taken out of that particular section. Correct.
We removed the videos.
The videos, yes.
Yes.
But none of the actual hard copies.
There's only one handout in that section, and I believe the gentleman again that reviewed it with me today mentioned that he thought we should work on that handout. So there's one section. One handout.
Well, in the paper I had it in full. So I could see how there's controversy in different viewpoints, because on page 84 on Teen Talk, when it does introduce the queer umbrella, and it does talk about different gender identities that are very new to people as I bring them up to parents and talk about them, because many people haven't heard of them. So besides transgender, there's also gender fluid, where you can fluctuate between male and female. on any given day, hour, or week. There's agender or gender neutral, meaning that you do not identify as either male or female, so you would go with a new pronoun, which would be Z. You have also, you can be male and female at the same time. This is part of the gender queer umbrella, meaning that you would go with a pronoun of they, them, or theirs. So these are new and different ideas that we've had before. Part of Teen Talk, there's a footnote in it, and I will just read it straight out from genderspectrum.org. It says, a child may have a non-binary gender identity, meaning they do not identify strictly as a boy or girl. They could identify as both, or neither, or another gender entirely. Agender people do not identify with any gender, and the descriptors for gender identities are rapidly changing, and there's a growing vocabulary for gender. So when you go to the gender-bred person on the PowerPoint presentation given to our 7th and 8th grade middle schoolers, you will see the first thing that pops up is it's not limited. Genders are not limited to this. So it's very open-ended as far as what gender can be. So in looking at this and many other aspects that I could see could be controversial, I dug into ACLU, their toolkit, which was a California Healthy Youth Act advocacy toolkit. And when they were expressing, it was for parents specifically, and it says here on page 4, talking to parents, say, talk to others in your community about the kinds of sexual health education students are receiving. And by the way, I don't think there's anybody here that doesn't want sex education. Okay, we all want sex education because it's necessary, it's needed, and we want to protect our kids, okay? But it says that 89% of the California parents support comprehensive sexual health education, speaking in the context of AB 329. This blew my mind. So I'm like, wow, we're talking about queer umbrella and all these other things in here, that pansexuality, asexuality, things that many parents have never heard of before, and yet we have an 89% approval rate given by ACLU. So I looked at the footnote, and it was a study done in Berkeley by Norman Constantine, and I thought I would go ahead and contact Norman Constantine from Berkeley. So I asked him, would you please send me the survey, the parent survey. It was a 24-page data parent survey, and he very graciously sent that to me over email. I read it and was very surprised. There was not one question about gender identity, nothing on gender spectrum, nothing on asexuality, pansexuality. Anal sex was never mentioned. Oral anal sex was never mentioned. Some of the most, you would say, controversial aspects were not on this 24-page survey. So then I looked at the survey and saw that it was dated 2007. Okay, this law was passed in 2015 and implemented in 2016 based on a 2007 survey. So I am a little skeptical when I see things like this because I find it deceptive.
Yes.
Yeah.
I do want to mention that I used to be a teacher in Orange Unified School District for several years, so I know a lot of teachers in Orange Unified. And I do know we have fantastic teachers here. And I am friends with many of those teachers. And if I understand correctly, when training was happening from our San Francisco trainers that came to train our teachers, there was a bit of a revolt that happened with the teachers in that they were not too happy about some of these things they thought they needed to teach, and so there had to be a little bit of intervention. I just want to say that not all the teachers are gung-ho about this, and I know that on a first-hand basis. I do want to mention also, and maybe we can bring in Mr. Spencer on this, concerning the law, because I am somebody who wants to follow the law, of course. And part of this law, AB 329, is that it needs to be medically accurate, and any contraceptives that are given in instruction for students need to be FDA approved. And I want to quote from the National Coalition of STD Directors from Washington, D.C., from one of the articles. It says, neither male nor female condoms are FDA approved for anal sex. Okay, so that could be a problem because we're teaching anal sex and we're teaching condom use for anal sex. Now, I looked into this a lot deeper, and before I was a teacher, I used to work for the Orange County Department, probation department. So I was actually on the team that helped write the AIDS prevention program. So I do have a little bit of background with this, and I did a lot of research on this. So what I did is I looked into, there's an HIV activist, a national activist who is gay, very highly recommended by LGBT organizations, and he did a thorough research on condom use and said they are not FDA approved. And the reason is because he had a gay magazine for 5 years. He wanted to advertise condoms in his magazine, of course, and he was denied. And he couldn't believe that he would be denied advertising condoms in a gay magazine. So he went on a research on this and found out that condoms are not FDA approved for anal sex. And the reason for that is CDC 2013, the last study done on condoms for anal sex, says that condoms for anal sex are only 70% efficient when used 100% of the time correctly. 100% of the time. So my problem when I read through the curriculum is all the efficacy stats that were given for anal sex were actually the vaginal stats. So they were not differentiating between anal sex and vaginal sex in the stats. And I find that very misleading and not serving our students. They need to be given the facts. And it needs to be medically accurate, and it needs to be FDA approved. Now, I did bring this up to staff, so they added a line in here saying, make sure to mention to your students that condoms are not FDA approved for anal sex. And I do appreciate that, but it is not in any of the handouts that the students are going to get. We're relying on the teachers to remember that very, very important fact. And in mentioning that these are teacher-created curriculum, here, when you say that, you might think it was customized, but teacher-created, as far as what I see here, is that we pulled out pages for Teen Talk. So now it's customized because we pulled out pages. Okay, that's good, but it's not like we customized it and rewrote it. Let's be clear on that.
This whole thing, the way I see it is, unfortunately, we all live in California. The fact of the matter.
Okay, I'll make a motion to delay this until the fall. I don't know when in the fall, because I think there's some work to be done to this curriculum.
And I do want to address a few things because I think this is a time to bring out information. In that you mentioned the Ashway, that it was not considered medically accurate, and I believe you were looking at the high school Teen Talk.
No, they have it for high school, middle school, and elementary.
Okay, because I believe middle school is 100% compliant to the law at the top. Recommended Teen Talk is considered the top. So when we talk about not following the law, and when we talk about some of these inaccuracies that we had at Chalk Hospital, some of our top experts look at, as well as other doctors that I've had look over this, they have said it is not medically accurate. So what I am saying is that I am not in fear of breaking the law over AB 329. Why? Because this curriculum breaks the law. I am serious. I am very concerned. The law says you have to teach contraceptives that are FDA approved, and they are not FDA approved. And by the way, 2013, the CDC stat, I thought, okay, maybe that's the last study that was done. I'm going to verify this. So I emailed the Senior Manager Communications Director for the National Coalition of STD Directors in Washington, D.C. And I asked him, his name is Matthew Pryor, I have all the documentation, I have all the emails, and he verified, yes, it's only 70% effective for anal sex. This is very, very serious to me. Okay, I'm passionate about this because I do not want to see kids put in harm's way with inaccurate information.
Yes. Yes.
I do not want to see that. That includes our LGBT kids, okay? We want to see them have accurate information. This is for all our kids' safety and good, all of them.
Yes.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. I call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
Okay, passes 6-1.